It all started on a Thursday when Vincenzo Vinciguerra, then a young militant with neo-fascist convictions, lit a fuse that would unravel into one of post-war Europe's darkest revelations. This is the true story of Operation Gladio and Italy's strategy of tension, told as a documentary of fear, secrecy, and slow unmasking. The context is the Cold War. Western Europe, terrified of a Soviet advance, saw the CIA, MI6, and NATO help build clandestine stay-behind networks, arms caches, trained cells meant to resist occupation. Those networks were real. Their purpose, at least officially, was straightforward. What followed was not.
From the late 1960s through the 1970s and into the 1980s, Italy convulsed with violence. On 12 December 1969, a bomb exploded at the Banca Nazionale dell'Agricoltura in Milan's Piazza Fontana, killing 17. In 1972, a car bomb in Peteano killed 3 carabinieri. In 1974, the Piazza della Loggia bombing in Brescia took 8 lives. And on 2 August 1980, a massive blast at Bologna railway station killed 85 and wounded hundreds. These atrocities were part of a pattern that Italian investigators and historians came to describe as the strategy of tension, deliberate acts of terror meant to frighten the public, discredit the left, and justify authoritarian security measures. Vincenzo Vinciguerra's trajectory supplies the human thread. Convicted for a 1972 bombing, he later declared from prison that elements of Italy's security apparatus and networks linked to NATO had tolerated or even fostered collusion with far-right militants. He testified that some extremists believed their violence would be used to prevent a leftward shift in Italian politics. His words were explosive because they offered an insider's claim that violence and clandestine state structures had intersected. The conspiration allegation had 2 parts. First, NATO and Western intelligence set up secret stay-behind armies across Europe after World War II. This was later acknowledged publicly by Italian authorities and NATO itself in 1990. Second, in Italy, some of these covert networks, tangled with domestic intelligence services, shadowy Masonic lodges such as P2, and extremist cells, were implicated by testimony and documents in a campaign of disinformation and violence designed to keep the political center-right in power. Evidence included court documents, declassified files, and the testimony of militants, agents, and magistrates. Investigations showed troubling links between Secret Service operatives and suspects in several attacks and demonstrated how early investigations sometimes pointed the finger at leftists using planted evidence. The tension ratcheted higher in 1990. Italian Prime Minister Giulio Andreotti acknowledged to Parliament that stay-behind formations had existed on Italian soil, one of the first public confirmations that NATO-sponsored networks had been active. NATO's leadership also confirmed the existence of stay-behind structures in several member states. Italian parliamentary inquiries and magistrates sifted through decades of secrets. Files vanished, witnesses recanted, and some convicted terrorists later testified that they had been manipulated or abetted by elements within the state. What emerged was not a tidy, single-line conspiracy, but a messy, morally bankrupt bricolage. Rogue operators inside democratic institutions who had placed short-term political calculations over the rule of law. Clandestine foreign support for secret structures that outlived oversight, and extremist actors willing to use terror to provoke change. Some corners of the puzzle were filled, executions were punished, and networks were officially dismantled. Other pieces never fit. Questions about who authorized what and the full extent of foreign awareness or complicity remain contested. The legacy of Gladio changed Europe's conversation about democracy and secrecy. It forced parliaments to demand transparency, led to legal reforms and public reckonings, and left a generation scarred by distrust. Vinciguerra, once an agent of terror, became a reluctant witness to a system that used violence as political leverage. The story of Operation Gladio is a warning. In the name of security, democracies can carve out shadows that swallow accountability. The archives are quieter now,
But the echoes of those bombs persist, a reminder that secrecy without oversight can become a conspiracy that reshapes history.